February 28th, 2026, Operation Epic Fury begins. 2 United States Navy supercarriers launch the most intense and sustained aerial offensive seen since the Iraq invasion of 2003. The USS Abraham Lincoln holds position in the Arabian Sea, methodically dismantling Iran's radar networks and opening clear corridors from the east. Meanwhile, the USS Gerald R. Ford operates in the eastern Mediterranean, striking from the west. 2 oceans, 2 carriers, a single coordinated storm converging on Iran. 5 days into the operation, CENTCOM does something that confounds the pundits. They move the Ford. $13 billion worth of nuclear-powered steel slides through the Suez Canal into the Red Sea, leaving behind an active corridor in the Mediterranean. Observers call it repositioning. Analysts call it reinforcement. Both are wrong. On the same day, 4,500 nautical miles away, the USS George H.W. Bush completes her final war certification off Virginia. Magazines fully stocked, air wing ready, destination confirmed. The eastern Mediterranean, the exact spot the Ford just vacated. You cannot reinforce by sending a replacement to the spot you just abandoned. You do not reposition the Navy's most advanced carrier in the middle of a war unless you are building something far greater than raw firepower. What CENTCOM is constructing is geometry, a triangle of 3 carriers, each locking a strategic choke point that controls Iran's connection to the outside world. The strategy of dispersion. Why split 3 $40 billion carriers across 3 oceans instead of concentrating them in a single strike? The answer is brutal, precise, and almost mathematical. Concentrated firepower overwhelms one target, but geometry can strangle a nation. By spreading the carriers across multiple points, the Navy forces Iran to defend in multiple directions at once, a problem no single radar network can solve. Over the course of this video, you'll understand why dispersion kills more effectively than mass, and why the 3rd carrier, the Bush, is the one Iran fears most. The key of this strategy is the geography itself. Iran sits ensnared by 3 choke points that could strangle its lifeblood. The Strait of Hormuz to the south, Bab el-Mandeb at the Red Sea's threshold, and the Suez Canal to the northwest. These aren't mere passages. They are razor-thin funnels through which the pulse of global trade flows. Hormuz narrows to a mere 21 nautical miles, till yet all the world's eyes are fixed on its 2-mile-wide navigable lanes, carrying 1/5 of the planet's daily oil. Bab el-Mandeb, squeezed between the rugged coasts of Yemen and Djibouti, channels about 12% of global maritime commerce, a corridor no vessel dares to ignore. And the Suez Canal? Another 12 to 15% of global trade slides through its engineered banks, binding continents together. These 3 choke points are far more than mere passages. They are the hidden veins of Iran's economy, the unseen arteries feeding its power. Disrupt one, and the country shudders, its markets stuttering, its supplies trembling. Disrupt all 3, and the picture changes entirely. Suddenly, the regime isn't just pressured, it's suffocating. A tightening noose wraps around its lifelines, and the world watches, breath held, as every halted ship, every stalled barrel, beats like a drum of inevitability. But here's the chilling part. The corridors are narrow, unforgiving, and every decision made, every maneuver on these waters, has consequences that ripple far beyond the map. One wrong move, one moment of hesitation, and the delicate balance of trade, oil, and survival teeters on the edge. The question isn't just what will happen, It's how far will it go before the choke becomes irreversible. Interestingly, the Persian Gulf, the body of water everyone expects a carrier, remains empty. Historically, every major operation stationed at least one carrier inside the Gulf. Not this time. Why? Because the Gulf is a trap. A semi-enclosed body of water just 530 nautical miles long. A carrier here would be vulnerable to high-speed attack craft, shore-based missiles, and drone swarms, in all synchronized to make interception impossible. Iran spent decades turning the Gulf into a lethal kill box. The Navy refused to sail into that trap. Instead, carriers were deployed outside, each at a choke point, each creating a wall of control. Lincoln in the Arabian Sea, Ford in the Eastern Mediterranean, and Bush heading to the Suez. 3 carriers, 3 choke points, forming a cage with the lid closing on Iran. The physics of modern warfare. Dispersion is more than geography. It's physics. Consider the F-35C. Lightning II aboard the USS Lincoln. Sleek, silent, deadly. These 5th-generation stealth fighters didn't soar across the sky to strike. They flew to vanish, to blind, to ghost through Iran's radar networks like shadows. With a radar signature smaller than a steel ball bearing, they slip past the eyes of the southern air defenses, invisible, until they were already inside the kill zone. And then the trap springs. As soon as Iran's sensors react, the hidden predators reveal themselves. E-by-E, 18G Growlers streak into position, pinpointing every radar, every blink of resistance. Anti-radiation missiles follow in an invisible ballet of destruction, erasing defenses before the adversary even realizes they've been seen. Every movement is precise, every strike choreographed. The battlefield becomes a high-stakes game of hide-and-seek, where the seeker always has the advantage, and Iran is left chasing shadows. The corridors created by the carriers aren't just airspaces. They are engineered death traps. Behind them, R. Lee Burke-class destroyers launch Tomahawks, collapsing Iran's command nodes along Hormuz. Coastal missile batteries go silent. One carrier blade cuts one direction, leaving the enemy able to absorb the strike. 2 blades from opposite ends of the compass create simultaneous pressure, forcing the defense to split. Corridor widths increase under dual-axis geometry, turning tight choke points into open highways for American aircraft and missiles. Then the Ford's Suez Transit creates the 3rd vector. By entering the Red Sea, it solves multiple problems at once. Shields Israel from Houthi attacks, opens a southwest strike corridor into Iran, and chokes the supply line feeding Tehran's proxies. The pundits saw a carrier abandoning a position. In reality, it was a variable being moved inside a larger operational equation. By the time the Bush arrived from Norfolk, fully stocked with fresh crews and interceptors, and the Navy had completed a 3-blade formation, a geometric cage around Iran. The siege unfolds. With 3 carriers in place, the mathematics of attrition falls in favor of the Navy. 1 direction of attack is survivable for Iran. 2 directions are painful. 3 directions are fatal. After days of continuous pressure, radar sectors drop below effective thresholds. Over 2,000 targets struck, 30 warships destroyed, and Iran's air defense networks collapse incrementally. Lincoln holds Hormuz, cutting off 1.6 million barrels of oil daily, 82% of Iran's export revenue. Ford controls Bab el-Mandeb, severing weapons and drone shipments to Iran's allies in Yemen and beyond. Bush dominates the Suez Canal, closing off the last corridor to Europe, blocking economic lifelines and diplomatic channels. Iran cannot export oil, cannot import weapons, cannot resupply proxies. The carriers themselves have neutralized the Iranian Navy and coastal defenses. This is not a war defined by bombs and explosions. It is a siege, executed from the sea with precision and patience. Silence, in this context, is the most lethal weapon. Iran's economy halts, its military loses replenishment, and a regime built over decades finds its lifelines severed without a single enemy foot on its soil. The third carrier, the Bush, is the linchpin. Its arrival completes the geometric cage, turning threat into certainty. The enemy's equations have no solution. Firepower alone would not have sufficed. Only position and geometry achieve total control. Why geometry outperforms mass stacking carriers together, maximizes firepower in one direction, but creates a predictable problem for the defender. Geometry multiplies pressure across 3 axes, forcing Iran to divide its assets, thinning defenses to ineffectiveness. 2 carriers initiate the campaign, cutting corridors and dismantling threats. The third carrier locks the doors, enforcing a siege from the outside. The genius of this approach lies not in destruction, but in control. The carriers don't need to fire a single missile to command the seas. They own the game by presence alone. Positioned at the world's most critical junctions, Hormuz, Bab el-Mandeb, and the Suez Canal, these floating fortresses act as invisible sentinels. No vessel can slip past undetected. No aircraft can challenge their reach. No missile or drone can thread through the choke points. Supply chains halt mid-ocean. Proxies starve on the shore. Economic lifelines collapse like dominoes. And the initiative? It rests entirely in the hands of the Navy. Iran spent decades preparing for war on terms it understood. Concentrated strikes, overwhelming force, rapid escalation. Every weapon, every doctrine, every maneuver was designed to meet that threat. But reality now has a different rhythm. It faces geometry. Cold, calculated, unrelenting geometry. A cage of invisible lines, corridors, and choke points that suffocates movement, strangles supply, and robs freedom of action. And here's the subtle brilliance. The third carrier doesn't bring more firepower, it brings certainty. It completes the axis that collapses Iran's calculations, the unseen lever that tilts the balance entirely. This isn't conventional combat. It's a silent, methodical siege, where power is measured not in explosions, but in options denied, routes blocked, and every decision made under pressure. Every maneuver Iran attempts, every contingency it planned, is rendered obsolete, not by missiles, but by presence, strategy, and the geometry of domination. In this chessboard of water and steel, the pieces move before the opponent even knows the game has begun. And the Navy doesn't just play the game, it defines the rules. By the end of Operation Epic Fury, it is clear. 3 carriers do not win because they carry more weapons. They win because they hold the only 3 positions that matter. The choke points controlling Iran's economy, military logistics, and strategic lifelines. Block those corridors. And physics, not firepower, decides the outcome. No negotiation, no occupation, no ground troops. Just 3 floating fortresses in international waters, invisible on no transponder, answering to no host nation, quietly strangling the lifeblood of a regime that believed it could survive under conventional rules. The third carrier, the Bush, is not the backup. It is the keystone, the variable that solves the strategic equation. When it locks into position, Iran is encaged. Its options are gone. Its economy collapses. Its military falters. Its proxies starve. The Navy didn't defeat Iran with missiles or bombs alone. They defeated it with mathematics, geometry, and patience. And that is why the third carrier is the one Iran fears most. If this blew your mind, don't just leave it at that. Hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Join us as we go deeper, decoding the secrets behind the world's most precise naval operations, revealing the strategies, the geometry, and the unseen calculations that make modern warfare almost impossible to predict.